Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Mike, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables and sponsored by Analyst Depot. I am one of your hosts, Ashley. This is my co-host, one day removed from his birthday. Happy birthday, Michael Duncan.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
It's officially draft week, and we're going to have to start this fast because we have 32 picks in the first round to go over today. I would much rather be doing this from our Vegas hotel room that we were supposed to be doing, but next year.
Well, I don't think going to Vegas next year during the draft will be much help to anyone.
You get what I'm saying. Our hotel room at the draft.
Just making sure,
better?
you know. I don't know.
I hope you wouldn't let me show up to the wrong place. That would be embarrassing.
I wouldn't let you do anything. You are independent. You do whatever you want. Maybe you just want to go to Vegas. I don't know.
I do want to go to Vegas. I've never been.
Well, you should have gone this weekend. It's the draft.
I know. It's just like really expensive to go to Vegas during the Vegas itself is expensive, and then Vegas during the draft, less than a month after I went to New Orleans, was like, and bought a car is not the fiscally responsible thing to do.
I don't know. It sounds like you have a lot of money if you're buying a car and going to New Orleans and debating going to Vegas. I don't know.
No, I debated for a little bit. It wasn't that much of a debate once I figured out I had the other two things going.
Well, rest in peace, Las Vegas, son.
RIP, Vegas 2022. Anyway, how we're going to run this today is we're going to run basically a mock draft. You and I are both we're getting even and odd picks, but we're taking our own teams. It's going to get messed up a little bit in like 4 through 8. I'm going to make you take a couple of mine because otherwise I would have like 6 consecutive picks. So we'll go even and odds, and Blake is already distracting me.
I know. He's got me cheesing up here. I need a nap.
Anyway, you're going to start us off with the Jags. We're also going to talk a little bit about team needs. But actually, before you start us off, let's talk about our few teams. Well, there's actually a decent amount of them that don't have a first-round pick. I'm just going to go through them really quick and talk about when their first pick is. You have the Bears with the 39th overall, Broncos with the 40th, Colts with the 42nd, Browns with the 44th, the Niners with the 61st, Raiders with the 82nd overall, Dolphins with the 102nd overall, which is a compensatory, and the Rams with 104 overall, which is also a compensatory. All of those teams do not have a first-round pick, and some of them don't even pick till very late in the third.
F them picks.
Facts.
I mean, if it works, it works, I guess. Can't really complain.
Their video confused me so much.
Oh, yeah, the ones I posted on Twitter.
Yes, it was so confusing. You don't even have a draft. You don't even have a draft, basically. How are you going to steal it?
I think it's fun. I appreciate the marketing team for doing that.
Anyway, for the first year in what feels like a little bit of time, the first overall pick is one that's kind of been like a seesaw. So, you know, there's a lot of thoughts on where the Jags go. What do you think they're going to do at the first overall pick?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the honest answer, which by the way, if you're watching right now, you can see our draft board that we'll have up. This is from pff.com, their mock draft simulator, so we can kind of keep track of things as we go along. If you're listening afterward, I can't help you. You can go on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and watch there. But yeah, it's a bit of a mystery right now, and I mean, I think anyone's lying if they say they know what's going to happen, because we don't. You know, this isn't anything like we've seen in quite a bit. All that being said, I am going to take a guy who's pretty low on their board, actually. Trayvon Walker, the edge out of Georgia. He is the new betting favorite, and it seems like he is the favorite of the GM Trent Baalke. And I think when push comes to shove, he's the one that's going to be making the call. So I think we'll learn a decent bit about how the Jaguars are operating through this first round pick. But for right now, I'm just going to kind of go with the betting favorite in Trayvon Walker. So
Yeah, so I didn't mention before that we decided for the first time ever to not share a show sheet. So I didn't know what you were picking. You don't know what I had planned on picking, kind of to run it like a real draft. And I also had Trayvon Walker going first after Trent Baalke's last press conference was when he kind of skyrocketed. And that set me up for number 2, which is the pick I like most want to happen, is that I want the Lions to take Aiden Hutchinson at 2. I just think that's a great story too, but he has shown phenomenal ability, and the Lions really can go anywhere with this pick. They're one of those teams that have, like the next team, nearly needs at every position. So they could go a million different ways, but I think Aiden Hutchinson is probably the best one on the board that will really suit them for what they need right now.
Yeah, and I'll give the Lions credit. Like, they have a really solid roster,
Yes.
considering the fact that they're picking second overall. But yeah, I agree with you 100% that I think they're just taking the best player on the board. And when you're the Lions, I think that's the best thing you can do when you're in this position.
Yeah.
You're not forced to take, reach on a certain position. So, and also, yeah, I love the fact that a Michigan guy could go to Detroit. I just think that's a lot of fun. So I do hope that is the case.
And he was like all raised there,
Yeah.
So he was raised there, went to school at Michigan, and would be going to the Lions. Like, that would be like a little boy's dream come true. Like, I would love for that to happen.
Oh, absolutely. It would be a lot of fun. Yeah, and so now on the clock are the Houston Texans, which, as Brad Wire in the comments pointed out, they have needs at every position.
That made me laugh so hard this morning because they're the only one that says that.
Which, to be honest, I think is kind of BS. Like, they suck. Don't get me wrong, but do they really have needs at every position more so than some of the other teams we're looking at? Like, I don't really necessarily know about that. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with that, but it's fine. I'm not going to, they have picks at 3 and 13. So clearly, they're not in good shape. I do think they're in a very similar position where they can kind of take whomever. And when it comes down to that, I'm tempted to go with Sauce Gardner, cornerback, because they did just hire Lovie Smith, and, he's a former defensive coordinator. Sauce Gardner just has so much swag with him, and he's the kind of guy that, he just feels like a CB1. He feels like the finger wagging type of guy that you want to put up against the best wide receiver, and he's going to compete. And I'm really thinking hard about that, but I'm going to take my favorite tackle on the board in Evan Neal. Right now, it does kind of feel like there is sort of like there's kind of like a tier of 3, I think, for the most part, with Evan Neal, Charles Cross, and Ikem Ikwanu.
They call him Icky.
Yeah, Icky. And I'm not some offensive line guru to say that one is better than the other. I like Evan Neal. I like him a lot. So he, for me, is offensive tackle number 1, but I think he also has the versatility to possibly play at guard. So I think, again, with a franchise that is lacking good players, I think that drafting a good player at a very important position can be helpful. So
I'm on the same page with you. I just switched out the tackle. I had Icky going with them and Neal going a little bit later. And that was more so taken from a bunch of Texas beat reporters. Some of the things I relied on during my mock draft was talking with guys who have inside knowledge of what the team's thinking. But why don't you take 4 and all right, sure. You take 4 because this is where it gets tricky because if I'm going to do the Giants, I'd have like literally 6 consecutive picks.
Absolutely. I will pick for the Jets here. And right here, I am going to be taking the guy that I was thinking about taking, which is Sauce Gardner, whose name is actually Ahmad Gardner. And I will just continue to pass by him every time because it doesn't say Sauce. Mm-hmm. I think Ahmad Gardner is the CB1 in this class pretty easily. The Jets, as I feel like you mentioned every time we talk about the Jets, they do nothing. They had nothing in the secondary last year, and it just feels like a kind of match made in heaven. There's some other really good players on the board that I think could help them, including at the offensive line and keeping what's-his-face, Zach Wilson upright, possibly wide receiver, but I just think that Ahmad Gardner is too good of a talent to pass up for a team that really needs a cornerback.
I agree. I did have someone else, but anyway, we'll jump into it because I'll take the Giants here. What I think they will trade out of one of these picks, but the rules you and I set was that we're not going to trade any of these picks. If it's going to be one of them, I think it's going to be 7. I think they'd rather stay at 5 and rather than get pennies on the dollar for trading, only back 2 spots. But I think since you stole my idea of Evan Neal, I'll just switch them out and I'll say they're going to go with Icky in this spot. It's a huge need for them, and I pray to God they fill it. I don't. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I did a draft. I was doing a mock draft with Undrafted, the Dynasty podcast for the Undroppables, and I had the Giants, and I think I actually ended up taking Charles Cross or Evan Neal. But yeah, I agree. It's just a need that they have.
Yeah, I know. In Giants circles is that if Neal is one of the tackles that's left at 5, is that he's the favorite for the team right now. Again, we're still 24 hours out and a lot of changes in the last 24 hours of the draft. But if Neal would still be on the board, that would be who I think the Giants take.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I am going to, for the Panthers now with pick 6, I am going to take the third of the top 3 offensive line prospects available, or at least the top 3 exterior offensive line tackles. And I'm going to take Charles Cross out of Mississippi State. This is a guy who I've read a lot that the Giants are extremely interested in. And I kind of feel like in reality, he'll end up going to them, because I don't know if the tackles will come off the board like this. Like you said, I think there's a decent chance Icky's the first one to come off the board. But I think the Panthers could possibly reach for a quarterback. And I thought about giving them one, but I don't think either of the quarterbacks are really worth the number 6 overall pick. And I think Matt Rule is trying to win right now. And having a rookie quarterback is not really the recipe for that. But getting an instant upgrade on the offensive line to hopefully help Sam Darnold is closer to a recipe for that, I guess, for this team. So I'm going to go with Charles Cross.
One of the interesting takes I heard about them was, also their next pick after this one isn't until 137. Yeah. So that's one of the big issues is with that QB debate and why no one really knows what they're going to do. And I was listening to the Athletics podcast where they had on basically all the beat writers to go over the first 10 picks. And they had talked about the need of moving on to please the fan base versus not reaching, right? Because it's if you throw Sam Darnold in there again, your fan base is already mad at you. That's just going to make it worse. So, but do you want to reach and end up in a situation where you don't want to be in? So that's the debate. If they take a quarterback, which one do you think it would be?
That's a great question. I mean, it feels like they like Kenny Pickett. But I truly don't know. I have no clue how to feel about the quarterbacks. I think the reality of the situation is I think they are the most primed of these top 10 picks to really want to move backward because of that lack of picks, between now and 137. Mm-hmm. And I think you can very easily move back into the teens, early 20s and still get one of those top 2 quarterbacks. Yeah. So I think that's the most likely scenario. I know I didn't actually give you an answer on which quarterback, and I'm fine with that. But, staying where they are, I think they're just going to take who they hope can be their left tackle for the next, 15 years or whatever. So,
yep. And Charles Cross is really good at pass protection. That's what he's known for. So I don't know. It's Sam Darnold, so I don't want to put too much hope in it, but maybe it'll help if they decide to stick with Sam Darnold. And we also have to remember we have 2 decent quarterbacks still on the market in free agency, or not in trades, I guess. Not free agency, in trades is what I meant to say. Anyway, on to me with the Giants again, and I'll pick for the Falcons too, because then we'll get back on our even and odd schedule. this was hard because I had Sauce Gardner falling here. Rip, very rip. You took both of my hopes. I also think I did this mock draft with my hopes and dreams, so I knew I wasn't going to get both of them. I'd gotten either of them, though. That kind of stinks. So let's see. I would say I think I'm going to take Kyle Hamilton at safety. He's fallen a little bit in draft boards because of some issues with his 40 time, I believe it was. But he is still seems to be one of the most versatile players. And yeah, I guess I'll go with that. And I think they're going to try and switch up the way they've been doing things in that draft room. And I think that would be a switch up for them. So
I kind of, not that I don't think they will not take Kyle Hamilton, but I disagree that drafting Kyle Hamilton would be a switch up from the way they do things because, you know, obviously they took Saquon Barkley in the top 5 or whatever.
yeah, that's true.
They're now just going to walk in with a new GM and say, okay, we're going to draft a position that is undervalued consistently across the league year after year in the top 10.
Yeah.
And I believe that Kyle Hamilton is a top 5 prospect in this draft.
I agree.
And I don't personally have an issue with it. But the reason he's dropping, at least in my opinion, is not because of his talent, and it's entirely due to the position that he plays.
Yeah, I agree. And I think because safety is often misrepresented, right? Like, I don't want to say that word, but it's just overlooked, and everyone thinks it's easy to get a great one in free agency and in trades and stuff like that. And
I mean,
and I think when you have a prospect like Kyle Hamilton, I think it's really hard to pass on.
I don't know if it's necessarily that so much as it is like, I mean, how many great, like how often do you see great safeties being drafted in the top 10 to 15 or like comparatively to cornerbacks, or like how much are they getting paid? I mean, how much of a difference does having an elite safety really truly make if you compare it to having an elite cornerback or an elite tackle or something like that? I think that's really kind of what it comes down to. But you were on the clock with another team who, in my opinion, has needs at every single position. Maybe with the exception of tight end, but the Atlanta Falcons.
I agree. I think probably the only feasible option for them, I don't know, because I hate this quarterback class because it's just like stuck between a rock and a hard place because it feels too high to take any of them, but like I feel like the Falcons need to take one of them in the first round.
Oh, I don't. I disagree
really?
heavily. Because next year's class should be better.
So what are they going to do for now?
Lose. Take a really good player.
Forfeit?
Lose. Do you really think drafting a quarterback is going to help them win? Like, they're going to lose either way this year. So if they just draft a really good player, lose for a season, and then have a top 5 pick in a better quarterback draft, then you draft your quarterback. Now you have 2 good players. And one of them is a quarterback that's better than the one that you probably would have drafted this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, now I don't know what
you're
to
on
do.
the clock for it. That's what I would
out of it.
I don't know what the Falcons will do. That's what you're going to tell us, but that's what I would do.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Now I clicked a button and I don't know where I am.
I'm pretty sure you're still in your room.
I am. Imagine if I could time travel.
No,
all right. So, don't mind me. All right. Just take top one off the board.
Derek Stingley?
Yep. We'll do that.
All righty. Yeah, I mean, I think he's a really solid cornerback. He had a lot of great production in 2019, I think, the year that they won the national championship. He's been pretty underwhelming since then. And there's concerns of like him not giving a full effort, but LSU as a whole has been pretty bad since then. So he's an interesting case of, you know, we've seen it, but we haven't seen it in a while. So it's going to be interesting to see truly how the NFL views that. But this one is interesting. This is I can see this being a place where a quarterback is drafted. I'm not going to do it because I just don't think Seattle will. I don't know why they would, really.
I agree.
I mean, I don't get it. I think if they do it, they're stupid. I guess the question is, how stupid do I think Seattle is? I think they're very stupid,
Sounded
actually.
like a middle school insult.
Well, I think they're dumb. I feel like I've said that plenty of times on this
Oh, yeah.
podcast. I'm going to take a guy, but I think when it comes down to it, I think that they're going to see that Kayvon Thibodeau is still on the board, and they're
Yes.
going to take Kayvon Thibodeau because he's a great value at this point, and they love having defensive pieces. And for the rebuild that they're in right now, having a star edge rusher is going to be a massive part of that. Plus, out of Oregon, I just think that's fun. But yeah, so I'm going to be taking Kayvon Thibodeau for the Seattle Seahawks. And you are on the clock now with the New York Jets for their second pick. As a reminder, they had Sauce Gardner taken with the 4th overall pick.
Yeah. My whole strategy is like thrown out the window, and I'm not good on the fly, and you know that. But
It's a good thing we're doing a draft where
is
everything always goes exactly how we're
I
expecting
know.
it to.
Exactly. Maybe I should have kept us on the same show sheet. So I have heard a lot of rumors about Jets using one of these 2 picks on wide receivers, which makes sense for them. I just think I don't know which one it would be for them. We'll take Drake London to the Jets. That's what we're going to do.
It's very interesting. I don't think it's a bad pick. I think that he is. I think the betting favorites right now are probably either him or Garrett Wilson to be the top wide receivers off the board. I don't know if either of them would be my top wide receiver off the board. Garrett Wilson maybe. I'm very intrigued by it, but I think that's a good pick, and I think he's going to be a solid running mate with Elijah Moore, their second round pick last year.
Yep.
And now I am on the clock with the Washington Commanders. And I don't like this. I've mock drafted for these guys like twice now in different podcasts, and I don't know what to think about them. Their needs are obviously a quarterback, offensive line, but all the top offensive line guys, the tackles, are off the board. If one of them was still on the board, I think I'd draft him in a heartbeat. I'm not sure necessarily how I feel about the guards that are currently available. I think you can make an argument for some of them, probably. Kyle Hamilton is a guy that I probably would have drafted here were he available. He's not. So I think I'm just going to go with my top wide receiver off the board, which is Garrett Wilson. Because I think that they're just going to try and, get someone opposite Terry McLaurin, especially given the fact that Terry McLaurin's unhappy with his contract situation. It'll hopefully help Carson Wentz. And, I think wide receiver is becoming a very, very, it's always been important, but a very, very highly valued position in the league with the way that young guys are getting paid right now. So having one that is young and on a rookie deal, I think is starting to be more important than it ever has been. So
I agree. And with a quarterback like Carson Wentz, having somebody like Garrett Wilson who can create immense separation, is known for being, I don't know how it will transfer over. I mean, I say this every time I talk about a draft, but he in college was one of the best wide receivers at gaining separation. So for a guy like Carson Wentz on a team with an not even slightly underperforming wide receiver room as of last year, I think having someone like Garrett Wilson makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that if they did have Garrett Wilson, I think that might end up being like the second best wide receiving core Carson's ever had in a year, honestly, which is sad, but very accurate, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm on the pick with number 12 for the Vikings.
She's on the pick.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Oh.
I will never miss a chance to make fun of you.
To make fun of me, I know.
Yep.
I know. It's your whole shtick. So I think I hate this. This is why I couldn't. I'm not one of those people who claims to be that I could be a GM. I couldn't. But I think for this, I'm probably going to go with, how do I say his George? How do I pronounce the last name? I say it wrong. Karlaftis, because I say it weird. I'm going to go with him. He's one of, I think there's a drought in edge after this in the edge position after this pick. And I think that's something that could really benefit the Vikings right now. And again, I don't feel super confident with any of the other picks going to the Vikings, like working into the offense that they need. So I think, or the team that they need. So I'm going to go with him.
So there's actually, and I'm going to make him my next pick. I believe there's one more guy that I think is actually kind of likely to go in the top 10 from a pass rusher's perspective, if I can find him, and that is Jermaine Johnson.
Yes.
He's been rising a lot recently.
So fast.
So I think that he's really interesting, and I think, again, if the Texans can get another really good player at a position that is important, I mean, pass rushing, I'm a firm believer that the way you win games, the way you win Super Bowls, is you build from the inside out. You start with the offensive and defensive line and go from there. I did really consider a wide receiver here for Houston, because I think that if you can add to that room with Brandon Cooks and last year's third round pick, Nico Collins, I think you can give Davis Mills a lot of stuff to work with. Jameson Williams was very attractive there. But I think Jermaine Johnson is a really good value here, and I think that they're just going to take that position.
I agree. He has risen like 15 spots in the last handful of days. And I think it's been really interesting. But 14 for the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to take Trent McDuffie at corner for Washington, who played at Washington. It is a huge need for them. And what was I going to say? He is tiny, but makes a huge difference. So I'm going to go with him.
Thank you. I didn't want him, so
welcome.
I'm really happy. But you did leave two guys that I really want, both on the board for the Eagles here at 15. But I'm gonna take what I think is he might be the most talented wide receiver in this draft. It'll make it 3 straight years that the Eagles are drafting a wide receiver. And I also think that the next two teams are fairly likely to draft a wide receiver. So the Eagles pick again at 18. I'm going to take the guy that I don't think has a chance to get back to me at 18, and that is Jameson Williams, wide receiver out of Alabama. Obviously had a torn ACL during the season last year, but his speed is legit. He's an incredible wide receiver. And if he hadn't torn that ACL, I mean, there's a really, really, really strong chance he would have been the first wide receiver off the board. So being able to pair him with Devonta Smith along with Dallas Goedert and probably not Jalen Reagor, and new tight end JJ Arthur-Whiteside is making the transition to tight end. Go Birds. That pick wasn't a bust at all. I think it's giving Jalen Hurts even more to work with, and I think that's exciting, and I think something the Eagles do not want to pass on.
I agree. And I'm 100% in agreement that if he didn't have that injury, he would probably be going in the top 5 picks, definitely top 10.
Yeah.
His speed is not equivalent, but is often recognized as a speed like Tyreek Hill. And he is because of that speed, he doesn't even need to try that hard to get separation. He just creates separation because he's 5 steps ahead of you. And having the chemistry with 2 Alabama wide receivers would be really beneficial. Are you just like rebuilding Alabama's offense over there?
So what I'm doing is Howie did not draft a player out of Alabama for like 15 years or some shit like that. So last year, after taking an Alabama player in the first and second round, he's going to do it again in the first. I don't know. I'm counting on him overcorrecting.
And Hurts played at Alabama too.
Yep.
So we were just building Alabama over there. If you build it, they will come. I'm also really mad because that's who I had going to the Saints. So
yeah, like I said, I think Jameson Williams would be great on either the Saints or the Chargers. So I don't think there's a way he gets past them. But why don't you do the next 2 picks, and then I'll pick again for the Eagles at 18.
Okay, so Saints are in obvious need. PFF says one of their needs is quarterback. I don't think they're going to reach for a quarterback this early on, especially after signing Jameis. I don't even know when he's due back to play, but especially after re-signing Jameis, I don't think it's in their best interest to reach for one of the quarterbacks at this point when you could just get an okay guy in a round later. I think they're biggest need right now is wide receiver. So I'm going to take the best one on the board right now, which is Chris Olave. And he is really a really beautiful route runner, which I think could pair really well with the Saints style of offense right now. And yeah, like I said, I think that's just probably their biggest area of need.
Yeah, I mean, you're also pairing two Ohio State wide receivers together, Michael Thomas and Chris Olave. So
yep. And then the Chargers, this one, for some reason, I didn't have them written down. So their needs, according to PFF, are wide receiver, tackle, and corner. Oh, God. I don't even know what to do with this one.
I mean, I think, honestly...
You help me with this one, because
yeah,
I never know what they're thinking.
I don't know. I question how important they see wide receiver, considering they just paid Mike Williams and they have Keenan Allen. But I think that honestly, had Chris Olave or Jameson Williams still been on the board, I think that probably would have been my pick. But with the guys that are currently on the board, I'm not sure that they see one that really truly fits what they're kind of hoping to get, in my opinion. Like that can kind of, be a good what's the word I'm looking for? Be good alongside Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. So I mean, there's some good pass rushers still left on the board. Also, linebacker, I think, might be a little bit of an underrated need for them. They spent a lot of money on defense in this offseason, obviously, but I mean, in that division, I'm not sure you can really spend too much. My pick would probably be Devontae Wyatt out of Georgia.
Okay. They take it.
Okay.
And lead us into your pick.
Yeah, so the Eagles are on the board. PFF, they just drafted Jameson Williams. PFF has one of their needs as linebacker. They will not draft the linebacker in the first round. If they do, I don't know, I'll eat a sock or something. Like, nothing pisses me off more than when I see someone post a mock draft on Twitter and they have an Eagles taking a linebacker in the first round. Like, no, you don't pay attention then. I'm sorry. You don't pay attention. You're wrong. If they do it, you got lucky. It's that simple. Like, how, sorry. I'm angry because it's mock draft season. So every time I open Twitter, I see 12 mock drafts. And every time I see one where a guy puts a linebacker to the Eagles, I just want to comment and say, you're not paying attention to the Eagles. You're wrong. Which is going to be great. This is going to get clipped out, I'm sure, after they draft a linebacker in the first round. But all that to say, I'm not going to take a linebacker. I'm going to take Jordan Davis. I probably would have drafted him to. I strongly think he goes to the Ravens at 14 because he's just their type of player in all facets. But this dude is I believe he's basically the most athletic interior defensive lineman that we've ever seen. And actually, when you look at all the testing and everything, he's kind of the second most athletic person we've ever seen. Number one being Calvin Johnson. This dude is massive, and he ran something like a 4.65 40. He's just ridiculous. And the argument is that he didn't play a ton of snaps at Georgia because they rotated their defensive line a lot. But so do the Eagles. They have a needed defensive tackle with both Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave being free agents in the upcoming season. So, yeah, I think that's if the Eagles walk away with Jordan Davis and Jameson Williams, like I just managed to do, I'm going to throw a party. So I'm living.
Invited?
No, probably not.
Wow.
So do you want me to do the Saints and then we get back to our order, or?
Yeah, let's do it. Because neither of us have picks left for our teams, right? I don't think. So I think we should stay on
Eagles
on target now.
The Eagles are done. Yeah, so Chris Olave was a great pick. I really enjoyed that pick. By him, by them, by you, whatever. But I'm going to take Trevor Penning. They're going to try and replace Teron Armstead, who they lost in free agency. Trevor Penning, I think, is one of those guys that's kind of in that next tier of offensive tackles, particularly. Him and Bernard Raymond, I think, are kind of right there together. But I like Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa. So yeah, I'm going to take him to the Saints, and hopefully they can help Jameis stand upward and pass to Chris Olave. And you are now on the clock with pick 20 with the Steelers.
Yes. And with this, I think we are going to see, at least in our mock draft, the first QB off the board.
Yep.
So for this, I was torn between Pickett and Willis. But I'm just going to go ahead and take Willis. From what I've been hearing, he more so is what the Steelers have been talking about a lot. Again, it is smokescreen season, so they'll talk about a player and leak things that they love that player and hoping that it'll throw people off their scent. But I'm going to go with that because he is apparently the player they like best so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been rumored since like day one, and I think they're just going to be thrilled that they can sit where they are and just take the quarterback that they want. So I agree. I think that was pretty easy. I think they just run that card in. I also think this is kind of easy for the Patriots. I think they have a need at linebacker. No linebackers have been taken, but they prioritized that position. So I'm going to take Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah. He's arguably the best linebacker in this class. Good athlete. So, yeah, I think that's pretty easy for them. I think they probably consider wide receiver. I think they probably consider edge rusher as well. If Trent McDuffie was still on the board, maybe they'd consider him. But I think that Devin Lloyd was probably just the best value available at this point in the draft. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like it. So next up is what pick number is this? I lost my place.
22.
Pick number 22 for the Green Bay Packers. And I do think they are going to go with a wide receiver here. And I think it's going to be Treylon Burks, who is still on our board.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick.
Scroll up a little bit so we can see what we have so far, because I forgot to save a couple. All right, so it's a great pick. Keep talking.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a great pick. Treylon Burks, I mean, he might be the most talented wide receiver in this draft. He's just like, he's really, really interesting. He's big and he's fast. He's thick. He's a solid route runner. He's similar to Devontae Adams in certain ways. Like I'm not making that comparison lightly. He's probably not the route runner. He's not the route runner Devontae Adams is, but maybe he can grow into that. But he definitely can walk in there and be a large target out of the slot, as well as play on the outside at the X position. So I think he's going to be very versatile and very important for a team that lacks any weapons really at this point. Mm-hmm. So it's a great pick. And now I am on the clock with the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm really tempted to take Tyler Linderbaum. But I don't think, I think I'm going to take Zion Johnson. I like Tyler Linderbaum a lot. I'm actually hoping, I don't have the pick where I think he ends up going. You do, but I'm going to take Zion Johnson, guard out of Boston College. I think he is a good player. He's intelligent and versatile. So he'll find a spot to start along the offensive line. And also the Cardinals have drafted a defensive player in the drafts the last 3 years. So I think it's time that they get Kyler Murray some help. If Treylon Burks hadn't come off the board, I probably would have been looking at him, but oh well. You're on the clock with the Dallas Cowboys.
I am, and I have way too many tabs open. And what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to follow up the same position with you. I believe Kenyon Green is still there. I think he's the one that I'm going to take for the Cowboys here.
Let me find him. Yep, there he is.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I will say that is where I think Tyler Linderbaum will go. I have I hope he doesn't, because I think Tyler Linderbaum is a really, really good player, and I don't want him on the Cowboys. His most often compared to player in the NFL is Jason Kelce, except bigger. He's extremely athletic. I think he's really, really interesting. But I think Kenyon Green's also a solid pick. I just think they need offensive line help. Really, really, really bad. I really think they need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are now at the Buffalo Bills, who I think are extremely interesting because a lot of people have been a very popular pick for them has been Breece Hall, probably the top running back available. But I'm also a firm believer that the Buffalo Bills are not a dumb franchise. I think they're a very smart franchise, and I think that they are smarter than drafting a running back in the first round. Um, if there's a time to do it for them, it's probably now, I guess, because of how close they are. Why are you flipping me off? You're muted, so
I know. I said because I
oh,
know that was a dig. They're smart enough to not draft a running back in the first round. Wow.
yes, and I stand by it. I wasn't actually digging necessarily at the New York Giants.
I know.
Even the NFL is different, 5 years ago than it is now.
Yeah.
But I think if anything, we've just kind of seen what that can do and why that's not a good thing to do. But again, if there is a time to do it, it's probably when you're as close to the Super Bowl as you are, which they are. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take a guy that I really like, who is somewhere on here. I'm just going to search for him because I think I already passed him. But I'm going to take Jahan Dotson, wide receiver out of Penn State. He's been getting a lot of buzz in this latter half of the first round. He's a speedster, but he's also just a really good complete wide receiver. I think that he's going to be really interesting to a lot of the teams that are in this back half, like the Packers, the Bills, maybe even the Cardinals, as well as the Chiefs. But I think, honestly, they're just going to try and surround Josh Allen with even more weapons and maximize him to the best of their ability. And I think that's what you should do. So, yeah. You are now on the clock.
I am on the clock. So what I think I'm going to do here is I think I'm finally going to take Tyler Linderbaum off the board for the Tennessee Titans at pick number 26.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. And I think, there has been some recent talk about Tennessee going for a quarterback around that pick. But for now, I don't know if it's something that they should do here. I think it's better off to add Linderbaum to the roster rather and add a little bit more protection than to reach. It's not going to reach anymore. Quarterbacks are off the board, but you get what I mean.
No, I don't think it's a reach at all.
It's not, but like for them, which is like I understand they are starting to feel a necessity at quarterback, but I don't think it's something, in my opinion, that they should do with this pick.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with that, but I don't have an issue with that train of thought. Just if I were the GM, I think I probably would. But I also agree that they were the first seed last year. And if they're that close already and they can get someone who should be able to walk in and make an impact day one, like Tyler Linderbaum at the 26th pick, I mean, that's great for them. So I don't really have an issue with that whatsoever. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I am going to be selecting Travis Jones, interior defensive lineman out of Connecticut. He's a big athletic body. He should pair nicely with Vita Vea, and they currently have not re-signed Ndamukong Suh. So yeah, I think he's athletic and I think he fits well. And again, I think they're just trying to maximize the time they have left with Tom Brady. If Kenyon Green and Zion Johnson hadn't gone off the board, I probably would have been looking there, but they're both off the board. So I think going on the defensive side is something that they're looking to do.
Yeah, I like that pick for them. Let me just pull up my board. I was on a different page. Okay, so now with pick 28, we're getting towards the end of the first round. The Packers are back on the clock.
As a reminder, with their first pick, they took Treylon Burks, wide receiver.
Yes, and this one stumps me a little bit. Who did I have up here? Give me 1 second. I think I'm just going to take Raymond off the board for them. I know there has been a lot of talk about him being a possibility this late in the draft for the Packers, so I think I'm just going to roll that one.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. I think the only other place I would have looked was maybe Nakobe Dean. I think they have a need there at linebacker that might be a little understated. So
yeah.
So I am now on the clock with the Kansas City Chiefs, who actually have back-to-back picks here. So you'll do the next one, obviously. I'm going to take probably the best cornerback still available, and a guy that I like, who's Andrew Booth out of Clemson. I think he's a solid value here. He did get injured in this pre-draft process, but like it's not a bad injury. Like it really shouldn't pose much of an issue at all, but it's caused him to fall a little bit. So I think that the Chiefs are thrilled to be able to get a good value there. And I think the things they're going to be looking for the most are wide receivers and guys to stop wide receivers. So that puts you on the board with the 30th pick for the Chiefs. So who are you going to be taking with that pick?
So with this pick, I am going to look towards wide receiver after losing Tyreek Hill and everyone behind him kind of just being mediocre. I think I really like Sky Moore's style of play to mesh well with the Kansas City offense. He is very good at breaking tackles, and with a quarterback like Mahomes who can fit it in tight spaces, if you can also break a couple extra tackles along the way to pick up a few extra yards, that it could work really well in the Chiefs offense.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really, really solid pick. I don't have an issue with that whatsoever, really. And yeah, so now we're on the second to last pick, the Cincinnati Bengals, the 31st overall pick. I think that some of their biggest needs, obviously, are on the offensive line. That was a large part of the reason that things did not work out for them last year. But I'm not really sure that. I don't know if there's anyone necessarily on the board right now. Obviously, Tyler Smith is there, who I like, but I'm not totally convinced that he has a place day one that would really help them. And I think they're really looking for someone that should be able to help them year one. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to take Tyler Smith. I think he's maybe a little bit more of a projection than some of these other guys, but I think than some of the other offensive lines drafted. But I think that he has one of the highest upsides available. So I just think that's really, I think it's important for them. And I think even if he isn't able to contribute day one, they're probably still happy to get a guy like Tyler Smith that hopefully can grow into a role eventually. And, they're going to have to protect Joe Burrow for a long time. So, yeah.
I like it. And then with the last pick, the 32nd pick in the first round, the Lions are back on the clock. They're with their first pick, which was pick number 2. We had them taking Aiden Hutchinson. And with this pick, I think I'm finally going to take Nakobe Dean off the board. Linebacker is an issue for them right now. And I don't know. I like him there, and he's incredibly versatile, and that's why I think it could really benefit the Lions because, like we said, you kind of need someone. They kind of need everything. Even though they have a great roster, I think him being versatile and maybe being able to switch up the style of play a little bit will really help.
Yeah, I think, I agree with that. I agree with everything you said. So that will do us. We are now out of the first round. We are done.
Mm-hmm.
Our mock draft is complete. We will tweet out a picture of this. I downloaded it, like Ashley told me to, in the private chat that you guys can't see, because without her reminder, I absolutely would have clicked out of it.
Yeah.
So just real quick, do you have any thoughts on maybe picks that you were intrigued by or picks that you really hope happen? Obviously, we did this thinking that every pick we're going to make is what's going to happen tomorrow night. It's probably not going to happen, but was there anything in particular that kind of stuck out for you?
Yeah, so the first few picks, I think the Evan Neal going first for tackle was a little bit of a surprise for me. But I think those 3 tackles will go within the top 8. And I think it's just a toss-up of who goes first. So that one doesn't surprise me too much. Again, the pick I hope that happens the most is Aiden Hutchinson. And I think the biggest question for me is Thibodeau going to fall that far down to number 9? Because he has been slowly falling in mock drafts. And part of the reason is, he is an incredible playmaker, but a lot of people say his personality doesn't mesh well. It's like he lives, breathes, and sleeps football, but it doesn't mesh well with a lot of these teams that are looking to improve team culture and such, is how I've heard it described. So I think that's going to be probably the biggest question mark for me come tomorrow, is how far will he really fall?
Yeah, I also think that it's really likely that he ends up being a trade up candidate.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I can see the Eagles being extremely intrigued with trading up because I think even though I didn't take edge rusher, I think that edge rusher is one of the biggest needs for the Eagles. And if Kayvon Thibodeau starts falling, I think the Jets trading back from 10 is extremely likely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that could be really interesting. I'm really intrigued to see who the first wide receiver off the board is. Obviously, you had Drake London. I think I probably would have taken Garrett Wilson, and I think a lot of people are have Jameson Williams being the first one off the board, and it could be none of those three. So I think that could be really, really interesting. But I'm not sure any single player is going to be more intriguing to watch than Kyle Hamilton, which you touched on a little bit when you drafted him, but we talked about the idea of, how valuable is having a top tier safety. At what point in the draft is it like this player is too good to pass up versus it doesn't matter how good this player is. Can I really take a safety here? So super interesting. I've been intrigued by him this entire pre-draft process. He's a guy that I would love for the Eagles to draft. But again, he could go legitimately anywhere from like 3 to 25. And I wouldn't be too surprised.
And, there is obviously a little bit of hesitation for him to be falling a little bit. And, sometimes when they fall, it's just media hype, but this seems to have a little bit of coming from teams themselves. So I think that is another really intriguing one. I hope Jameson Williams is the first wide receiver off the board. I think that would switch things up a little bit. And his recovery apparently has been going better than expected. And he got hurt in January, so he should be expected, to play fairly early. So I think that's going to be the question is somebody willing to take the risk that maybe he won't play the first few games, but you get an elite wide receiver? Or, will this, the Saints, who don't have any wide receivers right now, are they willing to take that risk? Or are they going to go with someone who can play on day one? But I actually had one. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I would just say, I think worst case scenario would be like the PUP for Jameson Williams. But at this point, ACLs are like, I'm not even sure if NFL teams are scared off by them, honestly.
Yeah.
Not really. So I kind of fully expect him to be on the field week 1, to be honest. So, it'll be just interesting to see how NFL teams view that.
Yeah. And I wanted to share one fun fact that I heard, since you had the first pick and I forgot to mention it when you did. When I was listening to the Athletics podcast, they brought up something crazy. So the Jaguars, besides Cam Robinson, do not have a single player on the roster that they drafted in the first or second round in the 4-year span from 2014 to 2018. Cam Robinson's the only one. And that was, when they were talking with the beat writers and beat reporters, was one of the reasons that they might go with Walker with the first pick, because it's more of a safe pick than a few of the others, and he has kind of the measurables to back it up. And they're hoping
Balky
he just
loves those measurables.
It's
like it's such a stupid thing to be hearing so much about, but Trent Baalke like absolutely loves the way that Trayvon Walker is built. So very good point.
But crazy 4-year span. They only have one player left on their roster, so they're kind of not great drafters, I guess you could say.
They wish they drafted JJ Arcega-Whiteside in the second round. He's still on our roster. Suck it, Jacksonville.
Did you see the news about Eagles are open to hearing trade for
I'm open to hearing trades for my 2002 Toyota Camry as well. I would love a brand new car, but
I hate it
Rager.
Here.
I hate it here. It's been a rough week as an Eagles fan, or just a Philadelphia fan.
What was the one I sent to you that they were? Hold on, what did I send to you? Who was it?
You sent me a lot of things.
I do. I sent you a really funny one earlier, and I don't think you. Oh no, you did answer. I see now. That the Eagles were viewed in lead circles as a trade-up candidate for the Eagles. That was
if Kayvon Thibodeau falls.
For Thibodeau. Yeah,
that's what I said. I just said that. I was.
I forgot. I thought it was a different player, so that's why I went into Twitter and started reading it. But
nope, Kayvon Thibodeau.
Anyway, this was fun. I'm sure we will be like 90% wrong, but is there
if
one
we get
question
one pick
for
right,
you?
I'll be thrilled.
I know. If one question for you. Is there anyone we don't have going in the first round right now that you think, has a possibility of ending up in the first round?
I mean, yeah, I think there's a bunch of them.
They're all possible,
Kenny Pickett's
technically.
probably the easiest one. We didn't draft Kenny
Yeah.
Pickett. And I think it's very likely that he goes in the first round. I actually wouldn't be shocked if 3 quarterbacks go in the first round. So, I don't know who that third one's going to be. I mean, there's reports of it being anyone from Desmond Ridder to Sam Howell. Like, who knows? But yeah, I mean, the end of the draft is so tough. Like in a regular draft, I feel like we know a lot more about the top 10. And by regular draft, I just mean previous years. I feel like we know more about the top 10. This year, we don't know as much about the top 10, which makes it even harder to predict the bottom 10. Yeah. So having such a tough time predicting the bottom 10 just means that, I mean, some of the guys we drafted probably won't even go in the first round. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if one of them went in the third round or something like that. Like, we just don't know. We don't have a lot of information. We don't know a ton right now comparatively to how I've felt in previous years. So, agreed. Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely there's plenty of people that I think will be going in the first round. Yeah,
I agree. What was I going to say? I was looking at the thing before, and then I just lost my train of thought. Yes, that there's also, you can see that there is this emphasis on future, not just like for the players now, but future drafts. And that's not something that happens often in the NFL draft. I mean, it happens, in the draft room, but such a big emphasis on, well, if we just wait 1 year, because this draft class is, while it has really good edge rushers and really good tackles, a lot of the other positions are lacking a little bit, and wide receivers. The other positions are lacking. So they're stuck between 2 great draft classes for huge playmakers. So it's really interesting to see which teams are going to take the approach of, maybe we'll just not throw in the towel, but be ready for a bad year and expect to set ourselves up for long-term success by failing for 1 year and just waiting till the next draft. So I think that's going to be one of the most interesting things to look for.
Yeah, I think we're going to learn about how, and I mean, you can say this basically any year, but I think we're going to learn a lot about how teams think of themselves as well this season. So
I agree.
Or this draft. I think it's going to be very interesting.
I agree. Well, I'm surprised we wrapped that up in under an hour. We did go pretty fast.
You're zooming.
I'm proud of us.
Zoom. Also, one of the comments got hidden and I couldn't actually see it until right now, but Brad Wire at 8:37 said absolutely ecstatic, multiple shotguns, have no clue what he's talking about. None whatsoever.
I saw that one, and it was about one of the picks. Hold on.
Obviously,
but I think it was because he got excited about Jordan Davis, and then that came only 2 minutes later. So I think he was just really excited for this for Jordan Davis. Maybe we'll have to.
I'll take that. Either that, or he was talking about Trevor Penning, who I took, who's a tackle, and obviously Brad Wire is our offensive line guru over at the Undroppables. So
that could be.
I will have to ask him because I'm just really intrigued to know what he's talking about. Because out of context, I am very confused.
Multiple shotguns.
That's fine. So yeah.
Anyway, we have the draft tomorrow. I'm very excited. Do you have draft plans? Are you watching the draft anywhere or with?
I'm gonna be watching it here.
Yeah.
Yep. With my dog and maybe her bunnies. My dog found a bunny's nest in our backyard, and she's obsessed with them. She likes to go visit them, and she wants to protect them at all costs.
Okay, I was worried.
No, she found it, and she didn't do anything to it. She just lays near it sometimes. She sniffs it.
That's wild because she fights skunks.
Yeah.
And she's protecting the bunnies. That's crazy.
Yeah, so we wake up really early every morning so we can go check on the bunnies. I'm miserable. I don't like waking up early. But yeah, so maybe I'll invite the bunnies inside and we'll watch the draft together.
You better keep one of them.
I definitely not. I don't want it. That's horrible. They have a mother.
Bunnies are pets too.
Well, yeah, but they have a mother that's not. I don't want to take it away from their mother. I don't know how bunnies work.
Me either. We should.
And also, once it's a full-fledged bunny, I have no clue what Downey will do to it.
Fight it, probably.
True.
Anyway, Duncan, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at mpduncan75. You can find me at the Undroppables doing stuff.
Many things.
And you can find me probably at the top of a really tall tower after the Sixers are the first team to ever blow a 3-0 lead in the
I
NBA
was gonna talk
playoffs.
about that.
So
I wasn't going to mention it, but you did. Thrilling.
Woo. Trust the process.
It's all right. A lot of people know I live in Massachusetts, but I'm from New York. So it was the Celtics and the Nets playing. And I like the Celtics, but I am a New York fan. So when they're Boston and New York are playing, I have to root for New York. But I'm more of a Knicks fan. So thank God that series is over, because that one was even more painful. At least you guys had a lead at one point. You didn't get swept.
I mean, we still have a lead. It just feels miserable. We're still up 3-2. I just hate it.
Anyway, you could find me. You killed the mood. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's and at the beginning of Ashley. You can find me with the Undroppables at the Undroppables on all socials, Twitter, TikTok. And you can find both of us on the Patreon along with all of the Undroppables team and other patrons. To sign up for that, you just pay a couple dollars at patreon.com/theundroppables, and you get access to all of our premium Discord channels to talk about the draft and fantasy drafts, which will start up right after the draft happens, and basically anything football. And you can come hang and talk with us. So that's where you can find me, and you can find me here next week. We're kind of on an every other week schedule right now, but I'm sure we'll figure out if we'll see you next week. But anyway, you can check in and see if you could see us here on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the Undroppables Playbook.
Awesome. All right.
Yay.
Well, enjoy the draft, and we will see you later.
Bye.